Okay, now I have to start over. We'll call this meeting order at 7:34 now. Next thing is the roll call. So we'll start with the people that are present in person.
Joseph Adelita.
David Morse,
Aaron Corbo.
John Day.
and online, please.
Sid Maju.
Great, thank you very much.
Keith Gertler.
Okay, thank you. I was just worried about the members, so we have the present at the moment.
Sorry.
That, no problem. So John, you're gonna be designated. I think you're the only alternate here anyway. So you'll be designated.
Yep.
So now we'll do the pledge of allegiance.
United States.
Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. There's report. Thank you all for being here. With the weather, I know that several people are out because of power. Here, where people are working. But thanks to the people that are here for making it. Do we have any citizens' comments not to do with anything that we're going to be talking about later this meeting? None, we move on. One thing we have to do, we have to have a motion to add the release of the release of the standard and control bonds for the gas station.
So moved.
And do I have a second?
Okay.
Okay, any discussion? I'll just say that Dan emailed me and said that this will be coming up. It meets all his approvals. Dan, do you have anything to add?
I compared it with a previous as-built for the building where the basin was proposed. The inverts line up with what was approved. I did notice a couple pipes that were larger than what they were approved for, but I haven't found any problems every time I've looked over there. That this is functioning sufficiently, and I think this as-built that was presented by Dan Flynn from J&D Civil Engineers it meets what the commission was looking for when they released a portion of the bond earlier this year.
Okay, we do have an adequate copy here, if anybody would like to look at it.
Was that motion to add it to the agenda, or is that motion?
Oh, that was motion, oh, excuse me, that's right, that motion was added to the agenda.
All right, so where are we adding that to the agenda?
Oh, let's add it to the agenda. I'm sorry, carried away. Let's add it to new business. I'm sorry, Dan, we'll continue that discussion in a minute. All in favor of adding it to new business?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
And
that's
who
so
made? I'm sorry.
Joe made it,
I second.
John seconded. Sorry about that. I got
That's all
carried
right.
away. So now we'll go on to approving the minutes from November 14th and 21st. Were distributed today. I think they were emailed to you.
Move to accept the minutes for November 14th and November 21st as presented.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I abstained from November 14th.
Okay, any opposed and any abstentions, Aaron?
Yep, the November 14th, I abstained.
Okay,
Sid's okay. Sid.
Sid, are you okay with that? Did you hear us?
Yes.
Okay. Now we're on the new business. Let's get this erosion and sediment control thing done, and then we'll move to this next house. So if anybody would like to look at the as-bills, they're right here. As Dan said, he was happy with them and his inspection, so we just need, if anybody wants to look at it, they're here. And
Just a question in general, is the as-built compared to the design plan, I guess, to ensure that the as-built is meeting the approved design?
Did you hear that question, Dan?
Yes, so I included a second as-built from a previous stage in the project from 2022, where this basin is proposed, and the proposed contours and elevation of the inverts on that basin are listed on that previous as-built. So it's might read that that is what was approved, and that the current as-built from J&D Civil Engineers, those numbers line up with that that previous as-built which was approved. Then that was for I think the foundation, or it might have been subsurface as-built. But it should also be with the copy of the new as-built for the basin for your comparison purposes.
Yeah, but does it meet with the original plans? I think that was Joseph's question. Does it compare favorably with the original plans?
So the plan that I have on the table with that is, to my best understanding, what was approved. It's a project that went through many iterations of plans initially, and this was the most recent plan prior to this as-built here.
Don't they have original files on record as the original plans that we approved on file somewhere?
And design professionals.
Design
signed off
professionals
on
have the originals? And do the as-built match the original? That's that question.
I don't see why there'd be a difference in what the proposed what is proposed on the subsurface as-built from 2022 would be any different from what was approved. But there are plans. It's a thick file, bursting at the seams in our office. I don't see how that would have been tinkered with to be any different than what was approved initially, and then into 2022 for that subsurface as-built. But I mean, that's all I really have to say on it.
Gonna say you should go by the Mylars that are on file in the town clerk's office. Not the plans that are in the file, because they may not be the most recent ones that were approved by the commission. And also, is the site fully stabilized? I haven't visited, so I don't know if all the lawn areas are in. That's what's covered by the E&S bond.
Yep, all the lawn areas are in. This was a point of discussion in the July meeting where we released a partial portion of this bond. I didn't have time to acquire the Mylars for this. We received this as-built Tuesday of this week, and wanted to get this business item on the agenda. Of course, there's a lot of competing work in the office, so I was not able to provide that extra level of detail, and thought that this comparison as-built from 2022, which I don't see why that would have changed from its approval, felt this comparison as-built was sufficient to compare the inverts measured by J&D Civil Engineering.
Can we approve this other previous as-built in a previous meeting? I don't. Except for, was this a partial approval of the as-built?
Well, not normally approved as-built, you're just being asked to release the bond.
Okay.
It's the CEO.
So did we release a portion of the bond?
Yes.
Previous.
because that was mostly for the landscaping and grassing and
That's what the E&S bond is for.
Okay.
right.
And I've been by there, there's plenty of grass, things are very stable.
And I'm not opposed to releasing the rest of the bond. I'm just trying to understand the process that goes through. And if on a big project like this, if we have design professionals involved reviewing the plans, I think it's prudent for any of these large projects that design professionals were the ones who reviewed and approved it, and our commission approved what design professionals approved. It might be prudent to have design professionals just look at the as-built and see if it's compliant with what was approved by them. And again, not withholding, not for us to withhold the balance of the bond, but just to make sure our records are complete.
The best time to do that would have been before the CO was issued. So I wasn't part of that, because I don't
Okay.
do CO inspections, but hopefully that was done.
Well, that's something to consider. Okay, so this is, I mean, I've been by there, from what I can see, grass is growing and mowed. And
Well, Dan raised comments about the inverts and the drainage. And again, I would make a motion to allow the release of the bond of the $6,800 balance of the bond. And also request that the design professional just review this as-built plan that we just received. And confirm how it compares to the approved plan. And again, just for the files.
So just, I'm just wondering what happens if they say there's a problem that you've already approved everything?
If the process wasn't fully followed up to this point, it's kind of hard to turn around and do something about it. But at least we can document it. We took appropriate steps, and maybe there was a step that was missed earlier on. Getting the as-built approved before the CO is issued.
Sid, do you have any input? Can you hear us? Sid, can you hear us? Oh, yeah.
Fairly well, sometimes not though. I'm sorry, can you repeat the
I
question?
just wondered if you had any input on this, if you could hear the discussion. I mean, it seems pretty straightforward, it's a erosion control pond and the grass is growing, and Dan says that it meets, he says it meets what they said they would do, so.
And my motion was to approve the payment, but also have the as-built plan that was submitted just reviewed by design professional.
Did you hear that, Sid?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Requires a second, I'd be willing to do so.
It does require a second.
Yes, it does require a second. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Any more discussion?
So Dan, I had a question about the next to last paragraph. You said, I did note some overbuilding with larger pipes in a couple of places. However, these do not appear to impede or degrade function. Is there reason to think if you had larger pipes, there'd be a problem, or were you just being complete there?
From my observations there, it didn't cause any blowout or of where its outlet is on both of those. Just my observations that there hasn't been any kind of velocity increase that has appeared to cause any destruction from my visual observations. I'm not a PE, but I'm just giving you what I got and
Okay.
telling you what I saw.
Okay.
Thank you, Dan.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? And so moved. Did you see that, Sid voted aye on it?
Just wanted to add one more comment. Delia, you mentioned that the Mylars are kind of the record for what happened with land use.
Yeah.
How would a plan like this, assuming everything's fine, how would a final as-built plan relate to the Mylar?
It should show you, providing that everything is done according to the plan, the building should be located and showing on the as-built the way it was shown on the plan prior to construction. Like,
Will the Mylar be marked or updated to say?
Nothing to the Mylars, once they get filed, you're not supposed to write them I mean, other than town clerk signing, the only signature that happens after it goes to the town clerk's office.
Okay, so Dan commented that the file for the paper file for this is extensive, which I understand. So in the future, if there's any questions, somebody would have to dig through the file to look to compare the as-built plan with the file, the Mylar, which is the real permanent record.
The file may have, previous copies of things.
Yes.
So they don't need to have old copies, they
Sure.
could be thinned out perhaps to only keep the most recent copy of whatever was in them.
Okay. Oh, it's just one more question. How does as-built get to design professionals for their review? Will Cameron send that out, or I'm sorry, will Dan send that out?
Well, I've had cameras handling this sort of stuff, but you have to send a letter to the applicant and to the town treasurer to let them know that the bond is approved for release.
Good.
And then send a scan of the as-built to design professionals requesting that they review it, and then when the bill comes in, someone has to write an invoice. So that the applicant has to reimburse the town for the cost of that review.
Okay, on to, preliminary discussion of the Snexit House. And that is, Keith. I can't remember your last name. You're on. Can you hear us, Keith?
Oh, yep. Sorry, my mute button wasn't off. Hi, I'm Keith Gertler. Thanks for allowing me to speak for a few minutes. I wanted to share sort of what my initial thoughts are and plans, and then get some feedback from the town as to what you're looking for, because it's a beautiful asset. The existing use, or what it has been used for over the course of the last several decades, has been housing for groups that come in, and there's a couple different kitchens, but one main kitchen that services the house and several bedrooms. Each bedroom has sinks. A few bedrooms have bathrooms. Each floor has several bathrooms, and all in all, there's about 17 bedrooms. And the concept is a tradition or a transitional housing concept, where that would be either workforce housing, where there's a central kitchen that's shared, and it would be meant for short-term scenarios, and the other would be for more of a sober living facility, where it's transitional housing for folks that are looking for housing afterwards. They need a place to stay. Oftentimes, it's subsidized by the state by the week, and in that scenario, and actually in either scenario, as we're pretty early in this process, it would involve more than likely a lease with an operator. As I'm not probably going to be living in the house and operating the facility. So, it's early on, but I wanted to see what the town would like to see. Is it, a continued use kind of as that type of use, or, I'd love some feedback from the town.
I could offer, while you're thinking about that, I have pictures of the property, if anyone would like to see them, I can present them.
Yeah, that would be
Go
great.
ahead.
Celia, could I give a little history of how I got involved with this? Is that okay?
Sure.
Yeah, so my name is Mike Diorio. I work for CR Premier Properties. In this past March timeframe, I was approached by someone in town that the Snexit house was going to be wanted to be sold. It's owned by a group called the Retreat Incorporated, which is a group of board members. Most of the board members are well in their 80s, or in that list deceased right now. So they're dwindling. And Bill Hughes, who's the treasurer, approached me and said, hey, we love this property. He's been involved with the property for over 30 years. He knows the history of the property, and he says, we'd like to sell this to, and have it used for a similar function of, short-term retreats, B&B or something like that, not broken up and put multiple houses on the property that's the 10 acres are there. So I, as a realtor, started looking for, certain people to acquire. A lot of people approached me, a lot of husband and wife teams who wanted to start a B&B, and they go into the place and they're like, I don't think so. So a couple weeks ago, Keith approached me. Keith works for a company called, what's it?
O'Brien Commercial.
Properties out of the Concord, Mass area. And he came up with the idea of what he wanted to do with the property, and as well as has the resources to turn the property around, make it functional again. There's a lot of issues with it. The furnace is torn apart. This past spring, someone broke in, stole all the copper piping. It just needs to be brought back up to life. It's right now it's kind of really not an asset to the town. Retreat is nonprofit. They don't pay any taxes on the property. So they try to bring it back and have it a functional building that would give money to the town and make the area beautiful again, because it borders Roseland Park, cleaned out. It's really nice. So I approached Keith. Keith went to Delia, and this is where we are this evening to talk about its function, use, what it was used for. It was a little hard to figure that out because there weren't many records in town about this Nexit house. So I provided some information from the treasurer as to how it was used. And Keith would like to go along keeping it the same type of functionality, short-term stays or overnight stays for a short period of time.
I have some pictures, Cheryl. This is the presentation that, I'm sorry, the brochure that you'll have a copy of. And I'm sorry, Sid and Dan, I think that I've already previously provided that. This
Yes,
is the postcard Mr. Diorio found online of someone who actually stayed there. And it's a little hard to read it, but they just talk about their visit. And there's a brochure. I'm looking at copy.
That postcard's not.
Yeah. Next. Right. This postcard was written in 1967 from a woman who stayed there. So the retreat was built in 1886. In 1932, a Unitarian church bought it from Maine. They started doing retreats for their own religious functions. And then it kind of turned into the general public using it to keep it funded, to keep it going. And it's been active since 1932, so over 72 years. All the way up to prior to COVID, it was still being utilized. And there's a little write-up Bill wrote how it was used and how often it was used that he wrote. I can distribute it out tonight.
Did you say it was built for this program?
No, it was a family home back. It was kind of like Roseland Cottage back in the 1880s. Hey, someone had some money, let's go to the country of Woodstock and build a home on a lake.
Yeah.
And that's what they did. In 1932, it was sold to this religious organization.
What's wrong with this? Seeing the same thing?
We are all seeing the same thing now.
Hopefully you can see the next slide as well. Would you go turn? promise there are other slides. We just didn't put it in. Anyway, there's a postcard and a brochure for those of you who are here. This is what it looks like. And I think online you can see a little image of it.
There we go.
There you go.
Yeah, dining room, multiple bedrooms, big living room areas, a porch.
But normally, this picture is showing on the whole screen.
So, I worked there for a few years in the eighties. And then also actually worked with the last group that was supposed to, be there. But they couldn't, that was pandemic.
Okay,
There was a youth group that signed up to
oh, use it after the COVID.
use it after COVID and, went and they were like, oh, we're gonna hook everything up and clean it up, it'll be fine, and never ended up happening, so. But yeah, it hosted, family reunions, it hosted different kinds of retreats. I just learned that the East Woodstock Church would use it, for a few years for couples retreats, so there were like 8 to 10 couples that went once a year kind of thing. There were church youth groups that would come in from different locations, mostly around New England. Or some business retreats. And then from what I had seen online, in more recent years, they had been doing some historical presentations and inviting people to come in to do, there were like people in costumes and stuff. I would check it out online every once in a while because I do youth ministry work and I kept trying to bring one of my own youth groups there from when I lived in Massachusetts.
Right.
But yeah, it's a neat property. The land is gorgeous.
Yeah, it's a commercial kitchen, facility, dining area.
And really like the bathrooms are like dorm bath.
Right. Both upstairs is a bedrooms, it's like kind of like a men's and women's side, but it's community bathrooms and multiple toilets and sinks in each side of the upstairs for men and women. Kind of separated. It's like a college dorm. Kind of reminds you of the housing in the movie Dirty Dancing, one of those big buildings on the lake there. It's pretty fascinating. I brought Delia there a couple weeks ago.
And
Yeah.
a big fire escape stairwell.
Right.
That's what you actually see from Senexit
Right.
Road.
I guess the town and the fire department made them put in a fire escape on it. And it's on the outside of the building. It's just made of cinder block and stairs that go down. They also made them put in as the stairway is going up, it's a beautiful view up to the ceiling with an arched type of window. And they made them put glass sides in the staircase so to prevent and with a lower window to prevent a draft. Okay,
Just to keep the fire.
you keep the fire from going, but yet the stairways. I don't know, but it's just a beautiful home, and right now it's just slowly degrading. And it really needs to be brought back to life, and I think Keith and his company would be the right people to do it.
So,
And who knows what it could be in the future.
so where do things stand with this right now? Is funding been secured? Is it
Funding for,
buy it?
no, an offer hasn't even been made. Keith and I haven't even worked out. He has to do his due diligence. And then once he knows the town's gonna allow him to keep it in the same function, he'll move forward. Correct, Keith?
Yes. Well, there's a lot of, like Mike said, we're a long way to go. We haven't negotiated a price yet. We don't have offers, back and forth or anything. So, I think it is very important though to figure out that we're all on the same page as far as, what the town wants, what it's been used for, what its future use would be. And, before anything gets, officially done.
Well, this is just a preliminary hearing and there's nothing official or sanctioned about anything that's said here. I mean, it's not, this doesn't mean it's okay to do it. You're just presenting information.
Oh, understood. Absolutely.
Okay.
I understand.
I would imagine that you would have to deal with, certainly, the fire department and safety and health department and all that kind of stuff to do it. I don't know if it would require a special permit or?
Yes, so that's what we're trying to figure out, would it
Yeah,
require
I-
special permit or
Are
not,
we
based on its
so-
usage.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head, require a special permit, it certainly.
Who
Um,
determines that?
This commission.
this commission.
Yeah.
I mean, this
We would need to look at that and, you know, check our regulations and, I mean, it would certainly not something we can decide tonight, but it would be something we'd have to look into.
Sure.
So Mr. Diorio provided this statement.
Actually, Bill Hughes provided that. Bill Hughes is the
Oh, it's
treasurer.
right here. It's written by Bill Hughes. And he's described how the property was used as the retreat. And you can email you the brochure. I wasn't able to copy it for everybody. I think I ran out of paper in the copier or something. But this describes the woman who started it.
Right.
And so we have some history on how it was used. You have the brochure and this statement from Mr. Hughes about the frequency and the capacity that how many people it held, and he states in there about the frequency. But that's kind of what you use to determine if the proposal is similar enough. If you have enough information, or if you need more information, you can let Mr. Gertler know.
Okay. So this is something we'll have to look at, we'll have to take all this information and digest it and look at it. Yes, Joe.
Just for the basis of preliminary discussion, and so Keith can maybe understand one commissioner's questions is just, I would think because it's being looked at least for the two proposed areas, it's sober living or transitional housing, that's a different use than a retreat or an event center. So on that basis, I would think it would require a special permit approach. It's also sounding like those two thoughts for the use would be more full-time use as opposed to the infrequent use or weekend use of 3 or 4 days, 20 to 30 days out of the year. So I have no problem with that. I'm just thinking about the septic system for the much larger intense use than a retreat house for weekends. Just a question I'm thinking about.
Yeah,
And also if it is something like a sober living facility, I think we would look for more information about who is monitoring it, who lives on premise, who regulates folks coming in and out, what kind of guidelines, or things like that. It's a whole.
Yep.
Okay.
that makes sense.
Yeah, but that, you know, a lot of that is public health, they're gonna go to the NEDDH and make sure their septic system is up to the task.
Well, as I understand it, there's 2 3,000 gallon cesspools in place. And a number of years back, there was another operator that looked at doing a similar type use, and it met the requirements at the time, and I think it meets the requirements today. But once again, you know, it's so early in the process. I can't speak to exactly you know what exactly it would be, but it's going to be, you know, give or take 20 people in the house at maximum, which would be well less than, you know, what would be there on a retreat scenario. You know, because if you walk the property, it's, you know, each bedroom has 2 to 3 bedrooms in each of the bedrooms, and you know, obviously the 2 3,000 gallon tanks are equipped for, you know, for 17 bedrooms and twice as many people. So I think it would work from that standpoint. But I do understand your concerns as far as changing it from a more less temporary, even though it's temporary living, to more being people there, you know, full time.
We did find the NADDH, we did find a design in 1990, Pine Knoll was trying to sell it, and the mortgage company wanted to evaluate the septic system. So I went to the NDDH, and Delia has the information, I sent it to her. of the map of what's there for a tank and proposed new system if it was needed, so. There's enough of land that if it does need
Yeah, no,
something new to do it.
Yeah, there's plenty of land.
I was pretty excited to even find that, to be honest with
So I
you.
had no idea of what, I mean, I just throwing things in the air that would come up.
Yep,
And
Did you say it was a cesspool or septic tank?
two cesspools.
Cesspool.
Cesspools, which in the state of Connecticut, if they're working, they're still legal to use.
All right.
Has there ever been a sober living facility in town?
I've never heard of
Yes.
Yeah.
My building, when the Dowdies owned it for, at least for some time, the building over there. The second floor, I've been told at least that the apartments on the second floor, that's what they were used as for a little while.
What, do you know the approximate time?
70s, 1970s, would be my guess.
The good years.
So before any zoning.
Aren't there other group homes? Sort of, not necessarily sober living, or-
Yes.
I
Again,
think there's one on 198 right in your,
next.
right there.
Is there a group home in town?
Is there a residential facility or is that just a day?
No, there's residential right next, the ranch house that's next to the vet.
Yeah,
171 is residential.
okay.
Okay. I mean, this strikes me on the face of it. We're always sitting around here talking about how to sort of find jobs here to sort of encourage businesses. And here we have a lovely old building. And the proposed plan would be to offer jobs for people and, you know, actually have a real use for it. You know, I would think we would try and do everything we possibly could with this.
yeah, I mean, it sounds like a great plan.
Sounds
We
great.
just have to,
And plus the
it does
building
sound
is
like,
restored.
it does sound like you have to get a special permit. Significant change.
Right. I mean, I hate to say it, but I can see some of this, once the word gets out. The drug addicts living next door, but I mean, we have to fight against that. That's,
Well, that's why it's important to have a better perspective of what the plans are for doing that, site supervision, guidelines, and maybe it's more of the workforce housing. So, depends upon what key that group finds.
There may be some state statutes that I'm not aware of that would have to be followed. There's certain types of bird homes and housing that zoning is very limited in what you can do about, so I'd have to look into that.
Yeah, so I mean, it sounds like a great plan. And we're kind of in agreement, it's gonna probably have to go through the special permit process. Which, I mean, it's just kind of
It's not a deal breaker.
it's not a deal breaker, it's just kind of the problem, you know, hoops you have to jump through. You know, it's not like, I mean, you have, you know, the survey, which you probably have to have a survey anyway. But, and I don't know off the top of my head all the other requirements for it, but it's certainly in our thing. Contact you.
We could go over it with you to see what's required.
Chair, this is Dan Malo. I've got a couple notes I've taken for questions, if I could.
Sure, go ahead, Dan.
So I'm a resident of Putnam. Roseland Lake supplies Putnam's water. I'd be remiss if I didn't have concern about the cesspools and the intensification of use that's proposed. With the more like a daily living rather than a weekend or a seasonal kind of approach. Would there be plans to upgrade this system, even though it still meets, you know, current allowances by the health department? It's just one idea. It doesn't need any kind of answer today, but my interest is in the quality of the water. As Delia mentioned, this type of use may be a use permitted as of right up to a certain scale. So we'd have to look into that. Our zoning regs do define group homes, but they define them as not less than 7, no more than 12. In on a property. So 17 exceeds our definition, but we don't have further guidance in our regulations about these homes. The community district did allow temporary gatherings, and that's kind of how I see this previous use by the retreat as occasional temporary gatherings. This is kind of a more of a daily living on site. And the only other notation I had here, is there going to be clearing for parking, new structures, changes in the what's going on the physical imprint of the site footprint? New parking areas, primary is, being a primary question I have. Thank you.
Well, right now, parking is off-road on the street, right on the street, with stairs to go up to the house. There's this. No, I keep saying that, but it's, yeah. Drive down the street and get off the street and it's right there. There's also an access road to the house itself, a little before that parking area, that up at the top of the house, something could be put up there closer to the house for a handicap situation or whatever. And then the field in back has a road that goes around the back that with stairs that go up to the house too, so parking could be put in there too. That's what they did, Dan, when they had a function there. So there's area for parking.
So that could be one of the things that makes this special permit is just increasing the amount of structures or impervious surface on the site. But sorry to cut you off there, Delia. You were.
Parking lot for group homes, the only one I see is for daycare group home, which is for children. What definition were you using? I see a daycare group home. I don't see a group home that's not for children.
You're right. I just saw that. I'm mistaken there. I don't think we have guidance in our zoning regs about this specific type of use. But the state recognizes this to some scale as a use permitted as of right in residential zones. So what that threshold is would need a little bit of research. I think 17 exceeds that, but I don't know that number specifically. I think it might be 8. But we'll be looking to have answers for that.
How much frontage on the lake do you have?
Several hundred feet. It's 10 acres. Big square.
That's 20.
No, it's 10.1 acres.
I just pulled it up on, that's all I just.
Right.
Any other comments?
Just keep, sorry.
It would seem, even if it doesn't specifically fall under special permit. Needing a special permit, the special permit would actually offer us a bigger chance to have input and to shape the development. I mean, it just seems appropriate for something. It's not huge, but it's a substantial.
Woodstock anyway.
Yeah.
It's not written. How's that go? It's not in our zoning, so we don't, if it's not in here, does it require a special permit? We don't have any.
It's not permitted, then it's not allowed, except your special permitted uses are a little vague. And sometimes we have a use in town that's not in there and. Like if it's like commercial or something, a lot of things can. I don't think we specify all the uses that we have, but in our POCD discussion. I have a list of all those businesses that we have. We don't have all of the uses listed in our zoning regs.
Yeah, forgive my naivete, but are we able to designate something requiring a special permit if we want to? It's not otherwise stipulated in state law that overrules that. We just say, look, this is sort of a no-brainer. It needs a special.
When you go back to your zoning regs and refer to the permitted uses versus the special permitted uses.
Yep.
And see where it fits in there.
Right.
And if it's not in there and it's like, say, the prohibited uses, then obviously you know it's prohibited, but. Your list of uses are somewhat vague.
There's one under
It says,
service establishment.
it says retail, commercial uses, service establishments, but it doesn't say within those what kinds of businesses they would be. Houses of worship goes on a bit with that, cultural facilities, entertainment, exclusive adult entertainment, commercial recreation, cemeteries, light industrial, outdoor recreation, commercial composting, commercial kennels, country inns, cannabis establishments. So some of those are a bit vague, like a service establishment, I don't know if this would be considered a service.
Oh,
Does Keith have any questions?
Do you have any questions, Keith? Did we help you? Are we confusing you?
No, this has been very helpful. I appreciate it. It's the intention was to just determine if it was to try to use the building as much as it is today, and keep the character of the building, but not go through a change of use and not go through a lot of special permits and things like that. So it sounds like that potentially is the avenue or the where this may end up going. So I kind of have to think about that because it felt like this was the intention was to have this be used as it was intended, or as the church, in terms of number of bodies and number of bedrooms. But I'm obviously open to to all these suggestions, and it's really important and helpful to hear what people's opinions are on this. Thank you.
If I could offer to Keith, don't be put off by the fact that we're talking about a special permit. It's not as onerous as it sounds. It does help the commission and the community get a better idea of what a new property owner is and the land use plan for it. Again, don't just think because it's a special permit, it's out of range for what your plans are.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Coming from Massachusetts, some of the special permits, specifically in Concord, that we've had to go through in the past have been, a year, 2 years. It's not, that would not be. It's not feasible just from a carrying cost, construction costs. There's a lot of costs to the building, and so each additional hurdle of things that needs to get done will can affect how it works or not. So I definitely won't be scared by that. That's just as a reference point for my fear is that in Massachusetts it can be a very onerous process.
And further, I think I'm getting the sense from the commission that we would like to see something done with this property. And you're coming forward with something that looks feasible. So I think there's some encouragement I sense from the members of the commission who are here that we'd like to see you at least proceed with your investigation.
You can
Great.
We can set up a time to go over the regulations and process.
I absolutely will. Thank you.
If you'd like.
Do we have anything else on the? In the second half? And do we have any, and you're all set, Keith?
Yes, thank you very much. That was great. Really appreciate your time.
So, thank you for, yeah, expressing the interest. Hopefully something, we can work something out. I'd love to see
I
that.
proposed a Christmas party for next year at this next. Think about a year, right, Keith?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, it's probably 2 months away, Mike. You know how fast it can be. Thank you all very much.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Okay, so now- We're on to, PZC update, continuation of task inspection.
Give me a moment to pull up the other file. I'm gonna skip the presentation mode because it never seems to work. But we'll do this. So at the last meeting, we spoke about the state plan of conservation and development. Has anyone had a chance to read it? And do you have comments that you would like me to send to the state for you? Did you guys want to take a little more time for that?
So I'm halfway through it, and I'm happy to read it.
Yeah, with the holidays and stuff. Yeah.
So do you want me to put her on the meeting for the next meeting, like 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bill, you have a question?
Yes.
Bill Levinsky. Is this the existing one or the new one that's gonna be developed, that's in development? The state.
The state has a draft of the new one.
Okay, that's what you're looking at?
This is the link to the new one.
Okay.
And if you would like, if you email me, I can email you the links because it may not be accessible. And I need to send all the presentations, which I meant to do to the town to put them online, but I'll have to do that tomorrow.
Well, Dan sent them. to that,
Okay.
so.
If you'd like, we can talk about what your comments are, and then I could write them up and send them to the state.
Never at that, or whatever we meet. That's 2 weeks.
Yeah. So I also created a survey for the non-farm businesses and a separate survey for agricultural businesses. And I sent it out to everyone I could think of and asked them to share it with all the businesses and the farmers in town. And I have a separate survey for all the boards and commissions. And I sent that out to Crystal to ask her to share it with all the boards and commissions. And I know Amy goes to a lot of meetings, so I asked if she could share it with them. I do not have the results of the big survey yet, but we'll continue to work on those. And I was hoping that we would review the 2 documents I wrote as part of the SEDS. That's the the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy at NECOG. Their 2 documents are intended to help towns with their planning. And so I can send you the links to these again, if you haven't already looked at them. And if you'd like paper copies, if you want to let me know, I know not everybody wants paper copies, but I can send out an email tomorrow with the link, and then whoever likes paper copies can let me know.
Did
Did you send out that, other survey? I think you said farmers and businesses. Did you send that out to this commission?
No, because
Oh, all
they're
right.
not part of your business.
Well,
maybe.
I thought you sent it out to
Get it
all the
out.
other.
Well, there's the board, the boards and commissions survey is going to boards and commissions, and I guess you guys can fill it out if you want, but I already had asked you, but you're all welcome to do this particular survey. And the business survey and the farm survey will be sent out to businesses and farms.
So are they specific for those businesses or are they the same sort?
Two different surveys, that's why there's one
Yeah, I
on
just,
your screen.
yeah, I know, I just,
So the home occupations qualify as businesses?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't have everyone's contact information, but I sent it to the Economic Development Commission and to the Business Association, asking them to share it with businesses.
Okay.
And I asked Crystal to put it on the town website, but I guess they have a limit on how many news items they can put on their website or something.
To view this document here from ECOG, I guess. Is that the kind of thing you were referring to in the 2015 POCD? That it was, ours was compared to consistency for the state and the regional government?
The state POCD, which is what's at the link here. This is when we did our last
Yeah.
POCD update. I think there was some discussion of relevance to the state
Yeah, there was,
POCD.
yeah.
And so in the new document that we're having these discussions about, we can include mention of theirs, because they most likely will be done, or at least have a much more final draft before we're done with our draft.
okay, but in that same sentence, it said the state POCD, but it said regional government or something like that. The 2015.
Are you talking about these two documents?
Is that, that's for me?
These are two documents, I work at NACOG, and these are
These-
two documents that I wrote as part of our comprehensive economic development strategy, which is not anything to do with the state POCD.
That, yeah, I realize that, but you did mention consistency with those documents. It was or something to that effect.
No, not to be consistent with these were intended to provide guidance to towns in their land use planning. So I'm hoping that this commission can review them, and then maybe it will help them as they come up with possible recommendations that they put into the POCD.
So maybe is that going to be anyways?
I can include the email to him with the links.
So you can forward to.
I'm sorry, what was your name again?
Bill Lewinsky, WINSKI.
And he has your email?
Yes. I'm the chairman of the Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Agency.
Oh, okay.
In the town of Woodstock.
I heard you guys were discussing the POCD recently.
Yes,
We'll be getting a,
we're actually in some preliminary discussions, but trying to get a feel for direction where the town wants to go and where we want to go and what we think is essential for this. Which I can speak to in greater detail.
so I hope that you guys can do the boards and commission survey. It can be done either as a whole.
Yeah.
Or all the members can do the survey themselves.
I did it myself today, but
Okay.
we have probably getting a special meeting. We're scheduled for a special meeting next week to just discuss this.
Oh, good. And then these two documents, one of them is on the right is about housing. And the one on the left has to do with the survey that I reached out to. I reached out to 39 land use staff people, surveyors and engineers that prepare applications that go before land use commission. And I received a response, I think, of at least 25, maybe it's 29 people that responded. And this is the result of the survey. I'm gonna do further outreach in addition to that survey. Another list of questions specific to the Housing Authority, the WPCA, the Historic District, the Commission on Aging, the Conservation Commission. And you guys have already been talking, so I don't have separate questions for you, but I would like to hear from you And we'd appreciate your permission to do that survey.
Yeah.
If there's any other group the commission would like me to reach out to, please let me know.
I have some comments that I can add tonight. When it's appropriate.
And so then we still to come have the results of all the surveys. And the results of that special outreach to all the boards and commissions and the groups I just mentioned, and then the draft PZC, and then we'll have to have a public hearing at the end. So you could share your questions or comments now.
Okay. Well, in a general rule, we can, say that there's two things that people look at as important, and one of the two are health and prosperity. And it's kind of hard to see behind the scenes, but water ties into a lot of those things, because if you don't have good water supply, drinking, you don't have a healthy environment. If you have water that's, infiltrating houses and basements and erosions too much, that's another important thing. If I was looking for a house today, being through some of the experience I've had, that would be the first thing I would look at is how does the water get handled on this property? Like I said, we're in a preliminary discussion with the Wetlands Agency, and some of the focus is going to be on climate, what's called climate resiliency, and how we can respond to basically increases of water and adverse events that are expected to be coming. So some of that would be increased focus on water management, such as road erosion management, which we've had a little bit of contact with Jay at the Jay Scranton at the Highway Department, and he's actually done some projects that have improved erosion on some roads. Also, wetlands they look like polluted swamps, but they're very important, not just to wildlife. They're also reserves for storage of water when we have these excess events. They also serve as water filters, which most people don't realize. So if you see a swamp, be thankful for it, because that's making your water. Because of the increase of precipitation that we can expect in water in the atmosphere, from the water in the atmosphere, you might see new wetlands forming, and you might see new vernal pools forming, but they won't be be able to be established by the state standard by soil types, because the soil type hasn't been developed, the water hasn't been there long enough years. So the hydrophytic vegetation would be more of an indicator of something is getting to be a wetland that hasn't been previously considered as a wetland or a vernal pool. I've not been a big proponent of climate change and been somewhat skeptical about it myself. But I've been to enough conferences and things. It's as well established that there's more moisture in the atmosphere. It's well established that there are more severe flooding events. So we need to try to anticipate and plan for how we're going to handle some of this water. The flooding in Western Connecticut that we experienced a few months ago, about August, that is considered a 1,000-year event. So there was 7 inches of rain in 2 hours, I think, for a portion of that. I mean, obviously they had way more than that down south, but that's the magnitude of things that we're starting to do to see. And when the state has plans like the bridge they did on 169 by County Road, they project for 100-year flood right now. The other thing is that the state POCD, we don't know where they're going with that yet. So I don't know if might want to have think about an extension potentially to be able to fully digest what they're coming up with. Because the other thing that's going to happen is the FEMA is doing new flood maps for this particular area. They've done like the Quinnebog watershed, but they haven't done Woodstock. They're working on it. It might be available in March, but there's nothing to guarantee that. And what those new flood maps contain might have some impact on how we have to start thinking about different areas of town. And another thing is that we have that map for aquifers, and I'm not sure how accurate what's on there is delineated, but I know one of the documents I recently looked at says there's 451 acres in Woodstock that feeds the town of Southbridge as a watershed, and that's not delineated on that map. And I don't believe we have any map delineation for that yet. That's something we've talked about with wetlands also. So once we get a map that's really delineates these boundaries of these drinking water watersheds, you know, that might change our perspective on some areas also.
I'm sorry, could you back up? What doesn't the watershed map show?
Well, that's the aquifer map. It doesn't show the watershed for the town of Southbridge. And the aquifers on there are Putnam and Wyndham Waterworks. I'm not sure that they have the full extent there, or there's a boundary that's delineated. I know for the Wyndham Waterworks particularly, we have permits coming in that area that they have to be notified and they have to prove it. So we
Where
have,
that came from the state, so to know that they're.
The aquifer? Oh, okay, so, yeah, so we might be looking to get the drinking water districts to put their own delineation on a map, so that we can add that information in there.
So you guys will be reaching out to them to ask for that?
Yes. That's, there's also about 10 group or water supply systems in the town of Woodstock. That, you know, most of them are for like condos. That, if you're familiar with the Laurel Drive area across from Roseland, that whole neighborhood there is on one water system. So that they draw from a well that's right next to Roseland Lake. So that it's probably a good idea to have that delineated somewhere else. We don't currently have any of that information. Dan's done a little bit of work on it. And Miles has done a little bit of work on it. So. That's about all I have at the moment. Do you have any questions, or do you have any particular items you'd like us to look at?
Have you contacted Connecticut Water? 'Cause I think they know where all the wells are. They've contacted me, to ask me questions about them before.
Okay, that's gonna be one. Any other questions or comments?
Joseph? Just wondering, your comment about resiliency and potential water storage areas, swamps, or vernal pools. Is that something that the agency, your agency, can kind of predict or suggest what might be important areas within the town to look at as those potential sites? So we know where to have some land use decisions.
We could try to look at that. That's kind of a difficult task because, you know, just for instance, there's one area in West Woodstock where Route 198 was straightened out and the wildlife monitoring there. And that place where the old road goes, it would collect a little bit of water, but it was either this spring or 2 springs ago, we went out there and it was a wet spring and it was actually being used as a vernal pool. So these areas can be very small where there's more collection, and so it's kind of hard to total pinpoint, but there might be other areas that's you know, that we have to say, you know, might have to watch out here. Plus, we still have a lot of small mill dams around that could fail, and some that have failed in the past. Some that would be moved by the order of the state as their electricity games. So Anything else?
Anybody else have anything? Anybody online have any questions? Hearing none, I do.
This is Dan. I echo Bill's concerns about the water quality or the drinking water. That Southbridge map is something that we're looking for them to file a map onto our town clerk's office. So when there's development activities in West Woodstock within their drinking water supply area, that they're being notified. But yeah, the commission, I'm sorry, the Wetlands Agency has a special meeting proposed for next Thursday to discuss this as their sole agenda item, and we hope to have a report come out of this shortly for PZC.
Yeah, basically, you know, water's often in the background, but it's gonna become a much bigger deal. But probably in the shorter term, unless something drastically different happens with the environment.
This is a question, not so much for Bill, but mostly for us, and when we're talking about multifamily housing or community housing, just for comparison, to know where these community wells are, it's relatively straightforward to get a listing from Connecticut Water. Where the community wells are in town, so we get a better idea of where some of these larger developments are doing their sewering and they're getting the water.
They don't have sewers, they most likely have
I
septic.
understand that, but some might be close to a sewer line and just trying to understand how. So getting a list of the community well.
So just my question for you too, I mean, in 2015 POCD, there was statements in there, they basically said sewer extension is significantly discouraged, if not outright discouraged.
Right.
Is that still the policy?
Pretty much.
Yeah, you'd have to talk to the, that's under the,
Yeah.
PCA. And I'm still, they think their current policy is to not encourage,
Oh, wow.
yeah. Because I know when the Woodstock Academy added it, there's no, there just went to the academy, there's like, other than the inn.
Yeah.
We added on.
Yeah.
That's it, because somebody wanted to put houses in up on the Richardson property up on Plain Hill Road,
Mhm.
and they thought they could tie into the sewer system, and we said, well, you gotta go back to the WPCA.
Yeah. That came before the finance agency.
They said,
Okay, well, thank you very much.
well, thank you. Thank you for all your input.
Thanks for coming.
We really appreciate it. Okay, or anything else today?
No.
Dana, do we have any home occupations?
No home occupations.
Okay. Any more citizens' comments? No. Mr. Young isn't here. I don't know if we're gonna be able to adjourn.
Motion. Woodgar.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, everybody, for coming, and we get a couple of weeks. Hopefully we'll have better weather.
Have a good one.
Thank you.